Hi, I'm Emily Maruth, and this is Buster. And this is my family history documentary. The Maruth family has a lot of history starting hundreds of years ago. I've gathered all the information I can, and I'm here to tell you all about the history of my family, starting from when we first came to America. Many years ago, my distant relatives immigrated to the United States from Sweden. It is hard to tell when exactly they came, because the Swedish have been immigrating to America for the past few hundreds of years. The first Swedish immigrants made their journey all the way back in the mid-1600s. The very first Swedish colony was established in the United States in 1638. It was located along the Delaware River. Swedish immigration did not reach a modest peak until many years later. It took place in the mid-1800s. There were many reasons that caused all of these immigrants to want to come to the United States. For example, Sweden was filled with many difficulties and obstacles that the people lived with. They had to cope with problems such as crop failure and poverty. Many Swedish were affected by these difficulties, which explains why there were so many people wanting to leave the country and to be given a chance to start over. One reason they chose to move to our country was the Homestead Act. The act gave out a homestead of farmland to anyone willing to do something to improve the land. Because the majority of the Swedish were farmers, all of this available farmland was extremely appealing to them. Upon arrival, the majority of the Swedish settled in the Midwest. The states that they most commonly populated were Iowa, Minnesota, Kansas, and the Dakotas. Here in the Midwest, almost all of them became farmers. Farming is the path that my relatives most likely took. This is how my family ended up here in Iowa, in the middle of the Midwest. As I said earlier, my mom's side of the family is mostly Swedish. There's a little bit of German in it as well. Her side of the family did not record their history very efficiently. Because of this, I was only able to trace her half of my family history back to my great-great-grandparents, so we will have to start from there. Albert August Lenz was my oldest relative that I could find record of. Albert was my great-great-grandfather. He married Celestina Mary Blyant in 1896. Their wedding was in Augusta, Iowa. Both Albert and Celestina were born and raised in Iowa. In 1899, Celestina gave birth to a little boy in Primrose, Iowa. They named him Carl Albert Lenz. Carl is my great-grandfather. Unfortunately, he died right before I was born, so I was never able to actually meet him. From what I have heard about him, Carl had a great sense of humor and loved to play practical jokes. When Carl was little, his family moved to New London, Iowa. The town of New London is very important to my family. This is because it has been home to several generations of us. Carl was the first of many Lenzes to reside in New London. In September of 1920, Carl married Susie Bell Baker. They got married in New London, which was Susie's hometown as well. A few years later, she gave birth to Carl Richard Lenz. Carl was named after his father. Because he didn't like being called the same thing as his father, Carl Richard Lenz decided to go by his middle name, Richard. Over time, Richard was shortened to Dick. Now everyone refers to him as Dick, and most people have no idea that his actual name is Carl. To me, he is Grandpa Dick. On May 21st, 1942, my Grandpa Dick married my grandma. Her name is Marlene Yvonne Yaley. They also lived in New London. My grandparents had 4 kids. Starting at the oldest, their names were Lori Kathleen, Brian Yaley, and Brett Albert, and lastly, my mom, Lucinda Carleen. The kids were all spaced evenly apart, with 2 years different between them. Lucinda, my mom, was the youngest of the 4 siblings. Because her first name was so long, my mom decided to go by Cindy instead, and of course, the kids were all born and raised in New London, Iowa. Cindy went to Clark Elementary School and New London High School. Go Tigers! She then left New London to attend college at Simpson. She was married to my dad, Stephen Frederick Maruth, on August 21st, 1993. They had their wedding in a small church in Iowa City. It was a small wedding, so they only invited family members and close friends. My parents decided to move here to the Des Moines area for their jobs. However, my grandparents and one of my uncles still reside in New London, where many past generations of my family have lived. The small town obviously contains a lot of Lenz family history. It is near and dear to my family. Now we get to the part of the story that involves me. I was born on April 17, 1995, in the Methodist Hospital in Des Moines, Iowa. As to my dad's side of my family, there's absolutely no information. His mom, my grandmother, passed away when I was really young. I don't remember her at all. We never had the chance to ask her about the family history, and now it's too late. My dad's father, Nick, also doesn't know much about his family history. He was adopted as a child and has no memory or knowledge of his birth parents. Luckily, his adoptive parents were very kind and caring. However, he never desired to contact his real parents. My family may not have much to go off of when it comes to our history, but it is important to keep track of what we do know about the Lenses and the Maruths. Bye! Thanks for watching!